Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, Kim Seltzer, a dating and makeover expert, where I will help you build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. You put your best foot forward when you are first dating and getting to know someone, presenting to this person what you consider the most attractive aspects of your personality. And you want to reveal just enough of yourself so that you can connect in an authentic way, but not too much too soon before you've built trust. And there's just so much to think about when you're getting to know someone romantically. But if you're anxious, or you're depressed or preoccupied with all things that could go wrong, it's a whole lot harder. And there is a delicate dance of dating, and it can feel even more tricky if you struggle with your mental health. And then on top of it, throw in the fact that research shows that dating apps can exacerbate rates of psychological distress. And there's a whole slew of problems that can come out of that. I remember I was working with a woman, and she had a history of anxiety. She definitely had some trauma in her life, and it all started actually with her dad. But the way that she was maintaining control over her anxiety was to have control. Well, that wasn't working when it comes to dating. So she would get in these situations, and she literally would vet these guys so hard. She would do these Q&A sessions when on a first date, and these guys left almost scared because she was just checking off her list, because she was really scared that the guys would have those qualities where she would get in a bad situation. So as we started working together, obviously, we were working a lot on creating boundaries, but also being more open and flirty and having fun and enjoying the moment. Well, that's really hard for somebody who has anxiety to do that. So I put her on this dating plan. I do dating plans like I do business plans. And we just created a space and time for her to go out to all these different places and just literally practice the fun of dating without getting attached of the outcome. And that was so hard for her. And then in the middle of our working together, she says, Kimmy, I think I need to stop. I think I need to stop dating. I said, oh, really? So what's going on? She's like, I really think I need to just work on myself. And I said, okay, so that's interesting. Now, this is a woman who had been in therapy for years and years and years. Now, mind you, I'm a therapist, so I'm a big fan of therapy. However, she just wasn't taking action, and she just found herself in fear. She was in this analysis paralysis, and it was easier for her to just work on herself, right, and go to therapy than taking action. So I kind of called her on that. I said, look, I respect that. But you've been doing this a long time. You know everything that's going on in your head. You know the answers. I said, but you need to override old habits. Basically, you're in a state of anxiety where you are creating a space where guys are having a hard time even feeling you because you're just doing the checklist every single time. So what if you use the process of dating just to get over old habits? And she's like, oh, well, I never thought about it that way. I said, well, remember your mission. Your mission is not to get a boyfriend right now. I know you want one, but your mission right now is to just flirt and have fun with everyone and do a little data dating so that you really get to know yourself and these guys in a whole different way, because you need to practice that. And she's like, oh, okay. And so anyway, so we continued the process and we did that. And it was the first time in her life that she really just enjoyed the art of dating. And then I kind of created a monster where she was dating up a storm, having fun. And she lands this great guy. And as history has it, she was just waiting for the ball to drop. And just as she was about to self-sabotage, thank God I was still coaching her, I said, look, he didn't text you back this one time. She's like, I'm out of here. This is the same guy. And I said, no, what if you just really did communicate for the first time, because she never had a voice, your feelings and what's going on? Could it be that this one time with this one guy, something happened? And sure enough, this guy didn't text her because he had left his phone at home. but she was ready to give up the entire relationship because of her past trauma. This is how important it is to talk about mental health and how it all impacts dating. And I'm happy to say they got through it and now they're boyfriend and girlfriend. But, you know, if you recognize that you are worthy of being loved, even when your mental health is suffering. And I think that's the hard part too. You don't have to be this ideal person before you put yourself out there. You don't have to be that like perfect person in your head. You're not broken, you're just living. And in fact, as I always say, working on you is working on your dating life, but it's hard to put yourself out there and do it yourself without support and guidance. That is for sure. And there has to be some sort of intentionality behind it. So, with me today is an amazing woman who I am going to talk with about the importance of mental health and how to build your confidence to date. She is, oh, you're going to love her. She's a 16-year military veteran and advocate for mental health and healing. After serving all over the world, to include a tour in Afghanistan and more, she faced the challenge of transitioning to a civilian life, grappling with anxiety, depression, and other mental health struggles. In 2024, she experienced a life-changing healing retreat through Illuminating Heroes and now dedicates herself to helping veterans and first responders find similar healing. I love that. Based in Los Angeles, she is the host of The Amy Is Show, a YouTube podcast exploring mental health, plant medicine, and spiritual awakenings. She holds an MBA, is a speaker, charity board member, and works in the YouTube podcast industry. Welcome, Amy Charlesworth. Are you there?
Hi, thank you for having me. What an intro. I'm like, I relate to this story about this woman so closely.
Oh, you do?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I love this. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, they know. Thanks for coming on. The minute I met you, like I loved you. I heard you speak at that event, and I was like, oh gosh, I have to have just more of a conversation with you because also so many people, and I've worked with a lot of people in the military as well. There is real stuff that is happening that can impact relationships and going out there and everything. But I do want to hear from you, and I want to hear what you related to. I want to hear your story, and really how kind of almost like your heroine journey.
When I first got out of the military, I went from active duty to National Guard first. So, for those of you that don't know, active duty is obviously full time, and then National Guard status is 1 week in a month, 2 weeks in the summer. So, it's very part time, and you can have a civilian career, a normal job at the same time as still being in the military. So, when I first transitioned, I was dating this man who I ended up becoming engaged to. This was back in 2016, 17. And we were 6 weeks away from getting married. And I found out he was cheating on me the entire time we were together. And so I've been single for the most part ever since then, since about 2018-ish. And I've just, man, so the story as you were telling it, I just relate to her so much in the sense that, putting yourself out there, trusting it's a very anxiety inducing experience. You worry if you sharing any part of your heart or being authentic in any sort of way is just going to be kind of just mishandled and misguided. And I think that's some of the anxiety that I share today because I'm very, very single. And so as I go through life, I definitely have a stiff arm out towards the opposite sex, in terms of anything relationship wise, because I just don't want to repeat what happened back in 2018-ish. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and it becomes your love shield, as I call it. And you don't even realize how your armor can be on so thick. And it could be in your body language, it could be in how you talk and relate that is protecting you, and
Yeah.
it's on a subconscious level. Well, yeah, and she's very single and like very beautiful. So guys listening to this podcast, I'm just saying go to YouTube and check her out because you're amazing. No, but I think I would actually like to hear more of your story if you don't mind, because you do come from, wow, such a different background and maybe share a little bit how that has impacted you.
Yeah, I mean, when I first separated from my ex, one of the most traumatic things for me, I think, was that I didn't just lose my relationship. When you're in a relationship with someone for any more than like a year, your friends become each other's friends, your social circles become each other's social circles, and what you do, how you spend your time. I mean, our kids were combined, so I kind of lost my whole sense of community. I truly lost everything. And it was a really rough transition the initial couple of years to the point where I moved to Los Angeles. So this was back when I was living in Oregon. And so I moved states, I'm like, I just need a fresh start. I sold my house and moved to California and, did the dream life thing where you just uproot and move somewhere really cool and fun. And so here I came to Hollywood and it's been such a great ride in terms of like finding a new community and, getting more into my civilian career. That's been amazing in terms of really getting my feet into the YouTube and podcast space and just have had such a great time. But when it comes to the love life, I've just definitely not found gold. It's been just full of mystery and I'll date people but they just don't seem genuine and I know we kind of started alluding to it earlier but mental health, my transition going from military to civilian life, mental health has been a really big important focus of mine, coming back from a war zone and from Afghanistan and dealing with some of that PTSD that I acquired during the military. And that's definitely played a part in how I view the world and how I view relationships and men. And so I think right now I'm still very much in the process of unpacking some of those boxes, but I've made massive headway, going through the plant medicine retreat that I went through earlier this year. And, just kind of cleared away a lot of that old trauma. Like this year, I really finally feel like I'm past the heartedness of that relationship all those years ago. And I'm in like a really great place with it. But now it's like navigating how do I get to that trust place, where I would even feel safe to be in a new relationship.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, and the PTSD stuff is so real. And because I wondered, like, before you were in the military, was there other trauma before that? And was there anxiety before that with your mental health?
Yeah, I never really looked at it that way until I went through a lot of the work I've done over the last year or so. But
Yeah.
yeah, my parents, as I look at my entire existence of life, I was 3 months old and my parents divorced when I was a baby. And so I've never seen my parents in the same room together. My mom moved all the way to the United States. I was born in England. She's British as well, so is my father.
Oh.
So I was born and raised in Nottingham, England. And my parents, when they split up, went to completely opposite ends of the world. And so that was my first demonstration of a healthy relationship, which was non-existence, right?
Mm.
Sorry, non-existent. And that just kind of continued. I was back and forth between my parents my whole life, arguing, fighting, and that was really the bedrock that I was raised up with. Is just that healthy relationships don't exist between a man and a woman. And so I think in terms of mental health, I think that really was my first exposure to just not feeling secure and not feeling safe and just kind of expecting chaos in relationships. And so yeah, very much so. I think I joined the military to escape some of that.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that was the case until I've started doing some of this inner healing shadow work and inner child work and just really diving into to get myself super healthy and super presentable, if you will, to potentially being in a relationship long term with someone. I realized I had all of these little bags that I hadn't unpacked before and I just stuffed away in the closet and they were there. So
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that, by the way, because I
yeah.
always say like our past is connected to the future and the choices we make, the patterns that get created. And sometimes we think it's, oh, well, it was just the breakup or the army or the bad job. But I find when you unravel things and you go all the way back, it started very early on. And
Mhm.
then you're attracted to relationships and situations that feel familiar, good, bad, or indifferent. But it's like, oh, that's familiar, And I think that, to your point, like when you come from an unpredictable environment,
Mm.
right, where and there's something that's called hypervigilance where you become so hyper aware of your surroundings and you're just waiting for the the ball to drop or the bomb to go off, right? Or in a minefield, it think about it, it's the same thing. And you have to be really hyper vigilant. Like, where is everything going to come from? And so simulating that effect, it creates a lot of anxiety. So the ways of calming the system and anxiety is to have some sort of control. And then that leaks out because, like you said, like it's scared to trust. And so you're looking for signs, you're waiting for the bomb to go off. And so but in efforts of doing that, and this is what I want to like talk about, is that you actually self-sabotage and create it anyway. Right.
Hmm.
And so the conversation then becomes, well, how do you override that? Because it's just pre-programming, and we all have it. We all have like the default button that we go back to, especially in a state of like insecurity or low confidence. So I'm just curious because like somebody watching this right now will look at you and also your career and all that you've been through. They're like, well, what does she have to worry about? Like she's gorgeous, she's beautiful, she came through it. Like, so that's why it's so good that you're disclosing this. How did you get through some of this stuff to the state that you're in now?
Yeah, I gotta tell you, it was not pretty. I mean, I have been my own worst enemy for the longest time. And what I realized, do you know who Joe Dispenza is?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Or, Esther Hicks is another
Yes.
one that I was
Yeah,
listening
she's
to a
great.
lot. So I just randomly started listening to these types of figures. I was reading books by Eckhart Tolle because someone recommended it to me. And this was only, gosh, 2 years ago where my healing journey began. Before this last year, I've really been deep diving. But I just started listening casually to these figures, and they were saying things like, well, what you think about is what you get. And take inventory of what you think about. So I was like, okay. So I literally grabbed a piece of paper, grabbed a pen, and just throughout the day, I'm jotting down notes. Well, I thought about this. I thought about this. I thought about this. And as I reviewed it at the end of the day, it was all negative, right? It
Mm.
was worry. It was fear. It was this person at work doesn't like me. It was, this guy didn't text me back or call me back, or I didn't get a second date here. Or, if we're not even talking about dating, it was like, man, I'm just hating the way I look in the mirror. I don't like my outfit. Like, I don't like how I feel. I feel fat. I feel gross. Like, I feel lazy, right? It was just all the thoughts that I was having as I was writing them down over the period of a few days that I did this exercise was negative. And then I was like, oh my gosh, well, Esther Hicks and Joe Dispenza and all these people, what they're saying, it's legit. Like they're saying you're literally getting what you think about. So I just started trying to change the channel, and it wasn't perfect right away. But when a negative thought would come up, it was, you know what? I don't like what's on TV right now. Let me just quickly change a channel. And it was like, I'm beautiful and I'm smart and I'm funny and I'm capable. And this person probably is just having a bad day too at work. They like me. And this guy, obviously, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. It's okay. There'll be more men. So I just tried that, and it definitely took some work. I mean, I had to get really honest with myself that I was the problem, and the problem was in my brain, and the problem was what I was saying to myself. I was saying things to myself that I wouldn't say to my worst enemies. And so it was really kind of traumatic to realize that I was the problem. I mean, that takes extreme ownership. And I think a lot of people, even people that are in my life now that I have around my circle, will catch themselves, and not want to admit that it's them. They'll want to point blame at everybody else because that's easier. But once you realize, really, it is you, you're really the problem. And it's really what you're telling yourself. That's when my true healing started, and my life started to turn around. I mean, like things are going really great right now. The one thing I don't have yet is a relationship. But to be honest with you, I kind of like the principle of save the best thing for last, because I think that's like the prize, but like also I've completely turned my mental health around. I've completely turned my physical health around, my
Wow.
finances, my work. I mean, just all my relationships, the people I'm hanging out with, everything in every single facet of my life has improved, but it all started with me.
It's like you're the common denominator, right?
Yeah.
And it could work both negative and positive, but on a positive spin, like look at how empowering that is too, knowing that you can flip things around at any point. It's just a matter of believing it and really doing things that like collect evidence against that. Because I think that's the other thing is if you're always seeing things as like why does this happen to me? Or it's the guys, or it's the town, or, whatever. It could be anything. When you really start taking the power back, that's how I see it. And you're like, oh, wow, like everything looks great. And it's almost like putting a different pair of glasses on. You're seeing the same world, but in a whole different perspective. And that's when magic starts happening. It sounds like you're in a wave too, which I love. Like when you're in that uphill and that swing, everything is just going to start happening. But right, like you can also just apply that to men, and it's going to take a little bit, but it's just like chiseling away at some of the shield, not stripping all the armor off, because that's not a good idea to stand there naked without any kind of protection. But at least you could put the sword down, and just learn that, right?
I love that analogy so much. One, because I'm a military, warrior where I'm like, yes,
Right.
give me sharp things. But I definitely resonate so much with just the stripping back. And I think that's the scary stuff, right? Where people get afraid of being alone. People get
Oh,
afraid
yeah.
of starting over. Like, I mean, I hope this message is reaching women that are in relationships, right? That maybe aren't serving them.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
that might mean getting out of something that is so familiar to you relationship wise. It might mean being alone for a while. And I've been alone for a while now, but I needed to be because I was not going to be a good partner in a relationship. I was so mentally unwell. There's no way I could have then poured into somebody else's cup also. So I was just trying to put some juice back in my own. And now that I'm in this place where I'm healthy again and I'm looking around and like things are joyful and I'm finding happiness, just in being alone and being by myself, like I feel now that I'm truly at the point where I'm ready. But what I really want to just emphasize is you've got to do the work to the point that you are standing there naked, completely without the swords and completely without the armor, because I was so hell-bent on being defensive and not letting anybody in. I had walls, guillotines, you know, uh,
Right.
MRAPs. I had like a full army around me of
Ammunition, all the.
shielding, right? And I had to chip away at all of those things. I had to give away the GUNs. I had to give away the bombs. I had to give away like all of the stuff that was shielding me and just release it all. And go through an ego death and go through a release that was so deep and so great that I've been carrying my whole life, so that I can let somebody in. When I was going through my healing journey, the very first thing the mushrooms told me, which people can laugh at that, but it's true. They tell you things and you have visions. The very first thing they told me is everyone will love you if you let them. And it was so profound to me because I wasn't letting anybody love me. I wasn't letting a single person. And I didn't even realize that I was doing that. And so, when I tell you that you really do have to strip it all, get comfortable being naked in front of everybody, metaphorically speaking, put your heart back in your hand and allow someone to, and by the way, this can be applied to everything, work relationships, friendships, your parents, your siblings, right? This is not necessarily romantic, but like that's kind of what I just went through. I went through a brutal death, like ego death and a rebirth. And now I'm just in this really cool place where it's like, I just took a deep breath, I let it all out, and realized yes, I was the common denominator, I was the problem, and I'm okay, and everything's all right, and now I'm ready. Now I'm really ready.
Yeah, you seem like it. I love that ego death. That's awesome. That's well, and if we keep going with this whole metaphor, the war, it one of the things that, ties into like the mental health piece, and when you grow up in situations where you don't know where the bomb is going to go off, you also develop this awareness of people more than yourself. And so then what happens another kind of fallout in the dating world is that you almost like predict or assume things about other people because you're trying to make sense and control, and again, it's a way of managing your anxiety rather than just being and just asking and also expressing your needs. And so I didn't know if that has resonated with you at all, like as you're like adjusting to like now really like pulling in and say, hey, what do I want and how do I feel?
Oh my gosh, yes. I would say over the last 2 months, distinctly, I've done an exercise of writing down. Actually, a really great girlfriend of mine told me to do this, and it was really cool. I'd never done it before because people would ask me all the time, well, what do you want?
Yeah.
And you know, those famous memes that go around? There's like a part in the Notebook movie where the guy's like, what do you want? And the girl's like, I don't know. I don't know. And it like circulates the internet. Well, that's me. For a long time, I was like, I have no idea, right? Like I'm single and I'm mad about it and I'm sad about it, but I don't even know what I want. I couldn't even make a list if I tried. So I just went through that exercise finally. And it was so cool to write down a list of things that I wanted from a partner. But then I also made a list of what things was I willing to be for a partner and what do I want from myself. And so I did those two things, and I pull out that list probably once or twice a week now when I do my meditation exercises, and I just try to feel like what is it like to have this kind of partner, and what's it like to have these kinds of things. And that really has given me at least a roadmap. So when I do finally start meeting people again, I'll have something to bounce off of, like truly, what do I want? Because before, to your very valid point of like just being so aware of other people, I was also in a place of people pleasing because
Mhm.
of past traumas where I just wanted everyone to be happy and fine at the sacrifice and detriment of what I wanted. And so I wasn't concerned at all about a list. I wasn't concerned about qualities. I was just happy if they gave me the time of day, which meant that I was putting my energy completely into the wrong people all the time. And I literally 6 months ago was surrounded by just completely wrong people for me from a whole bunch of different levels, friendship groups, potential romantic partners. I mean, I was hanging out with newly divorced men or men that were going through
Transition.
divorces,
Yeah.
or you know what I mean, like completely
Yeah.
mentally unavailable,
Yeah.
emotionally unavailable people. What was I doing, right? So the first thing on my list when I made a list was completely single and emotionally available, right? Like who knew that you could actually decide who you give your energy to until recently. So yeah, it's been life-changing, game-changing for me.
That's an awesome exercise because you are what you attract. And that's why I love that you did this journey where you really are making like your whole life better, including like how you view yourself. Because if you stayed in that state, in that negativity, the victim mode, and not available, you would continue to attract lopsided relationships, ones that don't serve you, the ones that are takers because you weren't open. This it was fresh off my mind because I just got off a call with somebody who I give free calls to people. And she's like, "Well, I keep attracting these unavailable guys. They're emotionally unavailable and LA is rampant with them." And she was like complaining, and she's going on and on. And yet, I was hearing that she was having a hard time trusting. She was having a hard time expressing herself. And I just stopped her and I said, "Are you emotionally available?"
Mm,
And she just
powerful.
paused. And she's like, wow, I don't think I am actually. I said, well, I'm not hearing that you are. And so you're just attracted because that's safer. In your subconscious mind, it's safer than really opening yourself up. And because it's part of the trust. And so I am so happy you shared that because that is so important. It's not until you look in the mirror and say, hey, this is what I deserve. This is what I love. And I love me. That's when other people will too. So, oh my God. I could go on and on with you. Like, this has been so great. Do you have any tips around people who are maybe like in a really dark place? I mean, like, they're maybe where you were at years and years and years ago, where they're saying, yeah, like everything that I'm hearing right now, I know I should do, but they're just feeling frozen, like in ways of taking action. And since you really like took action with all this stuff, I'm just wondering if there were things that worked for you or maybe tips that you would have.
Oh yeah, this is my bread and butter. So actually on my
Uh-huh.
podcast, every single guest that I have on the show, I carefully select the guests because I want them to be someone that can speak directly to a person who's in crisis mode. So
Yeah.
my whole show is around mental health, and I made it because I wanted to basically give myself a blueprint or a toolkit of like, okay, Amy, you're in crisis mode. Here's what you can do. Here's what the experts that I've talked to myself have said. So every single guest, I ask them, if someone's in crisis, what would you tell them to do? So I'll give you just a couple of those things that I've learned over the last few episodes that I've done. So
Please.
the first being is if you are in crisis mode, mental health wise, you should not trust yourself. And just establish that, right? You don't need to tell anyone. This is something you can keep to yourself, but don't trust yourself, right? Don't trust a word that you say in your brain. And why that's so important to establish is when you're listening to people like me right now, where I've just told everybody I'm in a great place, I went through darkness and now I'm out of it. You should trust me, and you should trust people like you who are therapists that are experts in this space. You should trust people like Joe Dispenza. You should trust people like Esther Hicks, right? Listen to content. If you're not going to be nice to yourself and you're not going to say nice things about yourself, if you're going to say, oh man, life sucks for me right now, I don't know if I want to see tomorrow, right? You're going to be all negative. Okay, well, don't trust yourself, right? Because you're clearly not thinking straight. You're under the influence of negativity, and that is not something you want to trust. So why don't you just trust for a moment the experts that have been through it, that are telling you that there's another side to it. So that's the first thing. Don't listen to yourself. The second thing is, depending on where you're at, if you're truly in crisis mode and you've just got a negative pattern playing in your brain and you're thinking that you might do something real dumb, get up and move. Go outside, ground yourself. Take off your shoes, take off your socks, put your feet in the grass, go sit by a big tree with your socks off and sit there and write it out, write your heart out, right? Take a book, take a pen, take some paper, just start writing. It doesn't even matter what you say. Start with Sally had some ice cream today. It doesn't matter. Just write whatever you want and just get flowing and just let it all out, right? No one needs to know. You can keep it to yourself if you want to. So when you're outside, when you're moving around, you're breaking the pattern of thought, right? You're not going to be able to keep that same loop playing. And what's really important to do is to try to change that channel, as we talked about earlier in this episode, is, if you don't like what's on TV, change a channel. And that could mean a lot of things. That could mean stop hanging out with the losers you've been hanging out with. Stop listening to the crappy TV shows and radio stations and music that you've been listening to that's put you in this dark place. Like, what are you consuming with your time and your energy, right? Who are you listening to? Do an inventory of what you tell yourself, as I mentioned earlier about what I did earlier in my episode. And if you're realizing these are things that you wouldn't tell, a 6-year-old little girl or little boy standing in front of you, don't say it to yourself. And I think just those things alone can get you to realize you shouldn't be trusting yourself if you're in a dark place. There's, find somebody else to listen to that's maybe got some positive things to say. You can get through it. If I can get through it, for sure, I promise you, you guys can get through it too. And then, just get outside, get some movement. And once you do those little things, you're going to be in a much better place to make decisions and immediately look for community that can support you, because I'll tell you, there is nothing like the power of community. So that could mean phoning a hotline. It could mean joining a Facebook group. It might mean reaching out to a therapist's office and asking them if they've got resources in the community for, a group of men or women going through a similar thing. The VA, going on Instagram and just putting a little note. Hey, does anybody want to go for a hike, today at this part of town? And, getting some friends to come and hang out with you. But there's nothing like community. So reach out, because there's a great saying that, if you ask for what you need, it is given. I think that's also in the Bible somewhere too. It's real. It's true. Ask for what you need, and it will appear. So when in doubt, reach out to someone.
Oh, Amy, that's beautiful. I was going to ask you for parting words of wisdom, but that was a whole lot of wisdom right there. So thank you for that. And I love what you said about the power of community. It's something I'm really passionate about. That's why I do so many retreats and, like group programs, because on top of it, if you're dating and you're struggling with mental health, the loneliness factor just exacerbates everything, like the
Mm,
mental health thing. And when you feel alone, or if you have a bunch of married folks who are, and even if they're nice, married folks are nice, they just don't get it. And it could almost make you feel worse when you're alone. And so having other single people on top of it to lift you up and have fun is so important. So I'm so glad you emphasized, and really good, like actionable tips that people, I think, could take away from this. So
yeah.
Amy, thank you so much. Wait, so okay, tell everyone where they can find your podcast and any other thing that you want to plug.
Yeah, so the easiest thing to tell everybody, because I have most things hyperlinked back to one another, but it's at QN as in Nancy, AMY. So QNAMY on Instagram, on YouTube, all of the things. Find me there, send me a DM. I'd love to say hi.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. Maybe I'll have you back. Maybe you'll be dating somebody.
Oh my gosh, yeah. There's some tea brewing, so I feel like around two, maybe in
Okay.
order, we'll have to spill. Yeah, but it's not quite official
It's
yet,
it's
so we'll see.
percolating.
It's
Yeah, that's
percolating
right.
for sure. Yeah, it's
Okay,
coming.
we'll stay
But
tuned
I'm
for
still
that.
accepting invites from any eligible bachelors out there.
Play
Yeah.
the field, play the field. We'll keep this metaphor alive. Oh, thanks, Amy. So, thanks for joining me today. This has been the Charisma Quotient. As always, I'm your host, Kimmy Seltzer. And remember, you can build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. And if you want to know more, make sure you go to my site, kimmyseltzer.com. And if your health is affecting your love life, then hop on a private call with me. We can talk about ways to get you out of this funk. And I actually have a unique opportunity. I haven't announced it yet because if you can believe it, I don't have a lot of spots left, but a few more women who would like to take it to the next level and experience a change in this part of your life, I have something for you. So, coming up in February, I am doing a small, intimate, private retreat. I have not done this before. It's brand new. It's called Inner Spark and Soul Retreat, and it focuses on nurturing your body, your mind, and your soul because we all know if you look and feel your best, that's when you attract what you want. And through like curated activities that I'm going to be doing with you, this transformative experience is going to be combining rejuvenating wellness practices, exploration of femininity energy, and self care strategies, both inside and out. And I am almost full, as I said, but I do have a few spots left. So if you're interested, here's the thing just go to askkimmy.com and let me know you're interested, or just click again that link that you see in the show notes to book a private call with me, and we can see if it's a fit. It would be a great way to get your mental and physical well being in check for the new year. A new year, a new you. And remember, working on you is working on your dating life. That's all for now.